When you install radio equipment, you need to connect them to antennas, and this means that there is a junction where you have to waterproof. Antennas are outside, equipment is inside, indoors or inside an outdoor cabinet. The waterproofing or the water seal that we normally use is made by roxtec, and they supply a range of multi-diameter modules through which cables are passed, and instructions are provided with the modules for installing them. The modules are all fitted into a frame, and the frame is installed in the wall of the building or in the base of the outdoor base station. There are many frames, there's small ones, large ones, but you're likely to see in Ericsson typically a two-half piece like this. Well, basically the two halves fit together. There's an adhesive strip with a backing on it here that we must remove, and then the two halves clip together using these clips that are provided. Let's actually do one. We have the metal brackets for holding them together. Note here that there is a recess and there is a stud, and when you put them together, the stud and the recess mate with each other to correctly align the sides of the panel. So remove the protective backing from the adhesive. The two halves are aligned, placed together. Insert the metal brackets, one at each side. Now we hammer the two into place. The two halves of the panel are in position. We just need a hole. And to knock out the hole, we again use the hammer and we knock the panel in the middle and the piece will just break out. But before we do this, we're just going to put on some goggles. Now you see why we need to use goggles. And then we just have to trim the edges using a file so that we don't get any sharp edges. If, however, we need a bigger frame, then the bigger frame is available. It's the same outer sections, but there's an extension piece in the middle so that we have two frames. And so we can build two sets of multi-diameter modules inside the one frame. Let's have a little look how this is assembled. A typical assembly will look like this in an Ericsson installation, and what we've done is we've inserted these blocks of rubber. The multi-diameter modules themselves consist of a bung down the centre with leaves of rubber. What you do is you remove the rubber bung and then you remove the leaves one at a time, so the diameter of the hole gets larger, and this has got to be increased sufficiently to take the diameter of the cable. You want to leave the hole just a little bit smaller than the cable, between 0.1 and 1 millimetre, so that when you apply these together with a cable in between, there should be about 1 millimetre of gap between the two. Okay? When you assemble them, we use a grease. This grease is supplied with the roxtec kit, and you put it all over the outer surfaces, between them, and then when you assemble them, the grease enables you to drop them into position, and it also helps to make a nice watertight seal. Here we've only got one cable, And that one cable goes through that multi-diameter block, and the other modules have got the centre bung left in position so that all of these are still waterproof. So there's only the one hole and the one cable. These are all assembled with a stay plate between each layer, and they just fit directly into the frame. At the top of this, we need to press it down. If you are installing cables directly, you will need a tool like this one, and applying that, pressing it down, will compress the modules, and you should start to see some grease oozing from between them. The cables themselves must go direct in through the block straight. You can't go through at an angle, otherwise you'll never get them pressed down, and it will leave a channel where the water could go through. But assuming you've assembled it correctly now, the cable's going straight in, they're all blocked up except for the ones with the cables, and we're all ready to compress it. And to compress it, we use this wedge. This wedge is inserted through the hole, and when you tighten the bolts with a 30mm wrench or a spanner, this will expand and press all the modules in place. But that must be inserted from inside the building. So we insert from the inside of the building. Okay. Then we can tighten it. But why do we insert from the inside of the building? From the outside of the building, there are no bolts. It's tamper-proof. When we tighten this wedge, we should tighten it up quite firmly, not more than 20 Newton meters, which is about 15 foot-pounds. When we tighten up these bolts, this will all get pressed down nicely. You'll see the grease oozing out, and we've got a perfect seal. No water can get through this.